I really hope it's not one of those books that just like leaves you with no answers. I think this book is honestly very hard for me to rate right now. Oh my god, the way I'm already so traumatized by this. Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. Today's reading vlog is actually the result of two previous videos I have done. I did two separate rounds of speed dating my physical TBR to refresh myself and also to find and secure those books that I am just so excited to read based on their very first line. So I did go through my entire physical TBR and then I gave them a grade just from those first sentences. Today I have collected the top 3 scores from those two experiments and we're gonna read them this week. I'm just really curious to see if those really hard-hitting first lines will actually be a good indicator of, let's say, a book that could be a 5-star read potentially. To announce the 3 books with the top scores from my speed dates. They are, in no particular order, these were all actually tied, all with a score of 9 out of 10. The first book is The Compound by Ashlyn Rawle. This is a mysterious thriller type of a book set on a desert island and based on a reality show in a somewhat dystopian world. Sounds so intriguing. Also our August Fable book club pick, so love that, and it's also on my August monthly TBR. So we're checking this off lots of lists here. The second we will be reading this week is The Dagger, it's upside down, one sec. The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. This is a romantasy. We are set in a world with like assassins and orders, and I think our main character is on this quest for revenge. Surprisingly enough, the first few sentences in this book felt very cozy to read, so that kind of terrified me, but I am so curious to see what this book will be like. And our third book for the week is the one and only Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I have been itching to pick this book up for so long, but the time has come, okay, because the first few sentences in this book really hit hard, and I've heard so many wonderful things about this book. And if you haven't heard about this one, it is like basically a very popular sci-fi series. So these are the 3 books we are going to be reading this week. Hopefully these will all be 5 stars because their first sentences were really great. Now, in terms of the order I'm going to be reading these books, I actually just finished reading The Way of Kings like 2 hours ago, so I don't think I'm quite ready yet to dive into new series and like new fantastical worlds. So The Dagger and the Flame and Red Rising are going to wait for now. I just need something real world to like set me back in reality. So we're actually gonna start with The Compound. Now, ever since this book came out, I have heard some mixed reviews, but after just reading the first few sentences, I was so intrigued. And to give you a little refresher of what those first few sentences were, chapter 1 starts. I woke up first. There was no particular significance to it, only that I have always slept poorly and generally wake early in the morning. I had no way to tell the time, but I thought that I had slept a while. My limbs were heavy and stiff from a long, motionless sleep. The room was dark and windowless, with only a small skylight directed above my bed, though it didn't smell of sleep or musk. It smelled fresh and airy, as if it had recently been cleaned. I thought I could detect the slightest trace of air freshener, citrus-scented, or maybe pine. There were 10 beds, though only one aside from my own was occupied. The girl in the bed across from me was slowly emerging from sleep. She sat up and looked at me. She was beautiful, but that was to be expected. I love the way this book opens. I think immediately it just puts you into that setting. You literally know how it smells, you know how it feels, but it also adds this intrigue, this mystery, because you, in the main character's POV, you don't know how you got there. It seems like she's very confused. She's woken up, she's in this like kind of dazed state, and it's so mysterious because there are 10 beds in this room, but only 2 of them are filled. And so after reading this, I was just so curious to see like when the other beds would be filled, who would be filling them, how they would arrive, who is this one other girl who's there with her, and how did they get into this room. So that's why these first few sentences really pulled me in immediately. I'm really excited to get into it, so let's just start reading. It is time for the 100-page update of The Compound. Those first few lines that we read definitely represent the overall vibe and mood of this book very well so far. We have definitely stuck to that theme where we are shrouded in mystery. This book definitely reads more like a literary dystopian fiction versus a thriller though. There's a bit of mystery involved, but so far it's not like so thrilling. It's just very dystopian with an eerie mood overall. Like things are creepy, but I wouldn't say things are like thriller thrilling. While everything's very creepy though, everything feels a little bit detached so far. And I think honestly, maybe that is adding to like the whole eeriness of the setting, but the writing style first and foremost feels very detached. I don't really know how to describe it other than just using the word detached. I don't know. It's like we're not getting that, you know, when you're watching reality TV and it's so sensational, it's so like over the top, so in your face, everything's so exaggerated with like quick cuts and all of that. We aren't getting that in this book, and it's probably because, you know, like we're not getting the polished, exciting, bundled up package that is a reality TV show. This is just like all of the raw footage that like we never see. It's like a reality show but missing the zing in the personality. And I think also like we're not getting so many details. This is quite a short book. I think it's around the 300-page mark, so that's definitely why we don't get every single detail of what's going on. But for example, we'll be in a conversation and we won't even get that entire conversation. Like instead of getting the literal dialogue, we'll just get a brief description of what they talked about. It'll be like, yeah, we talked for 20 more minutes while we brushed each other's hair. Just a very general like summary of what happened versus like the actual specifics. So yeah, the vibe is still the same from the first few sentences, but it definitely feels like more of a social study rather than something like so exciting and a mystery we have to solve. It's actually somewhat reminding me of I Who Have Never Known Men, which is another dystopian fiction, probably why there are some similarities. But I read that book, I think, was it last year or 2 years ago? I can't remember. But there are definitely parallels like with this eerie dystopian setting. We have our characters who just kind of like really easily accept that this is the situation they're in now. Like there's no fighting against it. It's just like, yep, this is where we're gonna be for like the foreseeable future. And there's no questioning it. There's no like, why are we here? What's our purpose? How can we leave? How can we change our situation? There's none of that. It's just kind of like, okay, we're settled here. Now what do we do? And it's more like it's going into how they build their own little mini society. Now that they're in this like weird stranded environment, we're just seeing them organize and they're dividing up like tasks and figuring out like what their goals are gonna be as their own mini society. That stuff is really interesting in this book so far, and I am so far enjoying this up to this point. I'm still very intrigued and I want to know where this goes. I hope this doesn't end up being an I Who Have Never Known Men situation where we get zero answers as to why our characters are there or like what the purpose is or like what's going on outside of this little compound. I need to know what's going on in the real world because there are a few references to like things that are going on outside of this compound. Very vague because our like reality show contestants aren't actually allowed to talk about like their outside world, like personal life experiences. So we get a very limited view of what's going on outside of this compound, but I really, really hope it's not one of those books that just like leaves you with no answers, because that was my biggest gripe about I Who Have Never Known Men is I really enjoyed the book and I enjoyed the parts where they like rebuild their society and just like, yeah, more of a social study on, you know, what happens if you put these people in a certain dystopian setting. I do enjoy that, but my logical brain just like needs real answers. So I hope we do get some of that in the compound, but we shall see as we continue reading. I'm at like the end-ish of this book. I think we have maybe like 60 to 70 pages left, but I am actually really pleasantly surprised by this. I've honestly been seeing more negative reviews about this book versus positive reviews, and I can definitely see why people would like really, really highly dislike this. On one hand, we have extremely unlikable characters, especially our protagonist, Lily. We are in her mind first-person POV the entire book, and she is a very difficult mind to be in. It's kind of a similar experience compared to Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. They're obviously very, very different books. They belong in different genres. The writing is very different, but just like that feeling of being in someone's head that you are so frustrated at and you just want to scream at them and you're just seeing them doing these horrible things and thinking these horrible thoughts. I know that does not agree with a lot of people. So word of a warning, if you are planning on reading this book, the protagonist is very, very frustrating. But I actually don't mind that the main character sucks in a book like this because the whole point of it is like, we're not not really supposed to love her. The entire book is just a commentary on humans and our weaknesses and how we can so easily lose our humanity, be greedy and think of ourselves and stuff like that. Like, how far will we go to earn certain prizes? And what will happen? How will we act when our bare necessities are like stripped away from us? So I like all the things we're questioning, and I don't think that this book could have been done well with like a likable main character. Like, that is not the point of this. However, I do wish we went deeper into that. I think a lot of it is staying a little bit surface level. Like, for a book like this, I want to really dive into the mind, and although we're just kind of slowly seeing the reality show contestants just like really slowly lose their minds. I'm enjoying it, but I want like a little bit more, I think. I think this would be a really cool multi-POV book if we followed more than just our protagonist and saw more of the inner workings of the minds of different characters. I think that would be very interesting. I think we're just kind of like lightly skimming on the surface and seeing things happen, and it's one of those books where like not that much is expressed on page. It's more like how you interpret it, and it just acts as like a base to like get your brain going, like to get you thinking about stuff, but it doesn't like implicitly dive deeper for you. So it's definitely not a perfect book. I also, like, as the plot's going on, I am seeing some logic holes kind of pop up, like things that don't quite make sense, but I'm kind of excusing it because the overall setting of this book is just very bizarre to begin with. This book is definitely not what I expected at all. Like, if you were to go into this book expecting a really messy, drama-filled, fast-paced, like thrillery, sinister book, you're not gonna get that. But I'm actually kind of pleasantly surprised that this book isn't just that. So yeah, really enjoying it, but let's read the last little bit and finish the compound. Where do we go from here? What can I even say about this book? That was just such a journey. It's one of those books that makes you feel like you've lost hope in humanity at the end of the book. It's not a warm, happy ending. It does not make you feel nice and fuzzy. It makes you really question life and people and like the direction we're going in. That was wild. But I enjoyed it. I really liked it. I think there's not that much that happens in the plot. It's very slow. Like, most of the book just follows the day-to-day of these characters as they go through like very mundane actions. They do these little tasks, and it's not very exciting, but you just kind of see very slowly as the characters react to their surroundings and like how they accept this like new environment that they're in. And even on the page explicitly, like, Ashlyn Rawle does not give you that much to work with. It's very simple. She just like gives you very matter-of-factly what is happening at a very surface level, but like it makes you think. Like, it triggers your brain to think beyond the page and to like interpret things in your own way. This book has really impacted me. It's also, I was mentioning at my 100-page update that I was really hoping that we would get a good conclusion and like explanation as to what was happening. We honestly, like, from what I was expecting before, we didn't get that much of an explanation. We got a little bit of it, but not as much as I was hoping for originally. But I will have to say, I don't mind. Like, I still feel quite satisfied with the ending, with the way things left off, and like just kind of the questions I still have. I'm okay with that, surprisingly. I think this book is honestly very hard for me to rate right now. I think on instinct, I actually want to give it a 4-star. Like, I actually really loved it. Definitely turned my brain on and made me question things, but at the same time, I do think some of the writing was not the strongest, and there were those plot holes that I noticed, and I feel like some things we could have elaborated more on. Like, we could have definitely gone deeper into many things probably. So maybe it's closer to a 3-star? But no, I did really enjoy it. I'm gonna give it a 3.75. That's where I'm gonna land with it. I'm actually really curious to see what other people think of this book, so I'm just gonna like quickly look at Goodreads. I try to not like read reviews before I'm done a book because I want to, you know, form my own opinions about books and not just like go by what I've seen like other people say. But let's see what other people thought. Okay, kind of really all over the place. Some people are like, yep, this blew my mind. It was absolutely addicting, so unique, very readable. There are people who are kind of like in the same situation as me. They're like, what do I even rate this book? Like, what do I do with this? But there are some negative reviews. Oh my gosh. Sarah Caroli rated it a 1-star, saying, forgive me, but I should have DNF. I mean, I get it. I can see why. There's something incredibly juvenile from this novel. I agree, especially like with the characters. They all felt very, very juvenile and just like they had nothing going on behind their heads. But I also think that was the point of this book. Okay, yeah, so definitely very like on both sides of the spectrum. People either really love it or people really hate it, or some people like literally just feel so confused and settle in the middle. All right, let's get into something that's a little bit more plot heavy next. And I actually posted on, I think all 3 platforms, on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. I posted a little short video with a reading update, and I also asked you guys what I should read next. Should it be The Dagger and the Flame or should it be Red Rising? And although The Dagger and the Flame had a few supporters, the majority of votes and comments definitely went to Red Rising. I think you all really, really want me to read that book and are really curious to see what I think. So let's go over and grab it. Okay, here she is. We are going to get into this. I've been saying that I don't really know what this book is about other than the fact that it's a very popular sci-fi series, and a lot of you have actually helped me in the comments. Basically, we have a world here that is split into like colors, like factions of colors, I think. I don't really know what that means yet, but I guess I will once I start reading. But we have like reds, we have golds, we have whatever, and they all sit on different, you know, levels of the hierarchy. Our main character is a red, I think, who is like very low on the scale, and he decides to disguise himself as a gold to like infiltrate the higher ranks. It's actually another dystopian book, so we're eating up the dystopian novels this week. A lot of you love this book, but then a lot of you are like, it does read very male. Really curious to see what that is all about. Let's just dive in. Wait, I totally realized, just forgot, I'm supposed to read those first few sentences with you guys as a little refresher, because the whole point of this week of reading is to see if the first few sentences align with the rest of the book and if I can predict a 5-star read using those first few sentences. So the first few sentences of Red Rising. I would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war. I watched 1,200 of their strongest sons and daughters, listening to a pitiless golden man speak between great marble pillars, listening to the beast who brought the flame that gnaws at my heart. All men are not created equal, he declares. Tall, imperious, an eagle of a man. The weak have deceived you. They would say the meek should inherit the earth, that the strong should nurture the gentle. This is the noble lie of democracy, the cancer that poisoned mankind. I just thought this sounded so intense. Like, it was just such a hard hitter to start out a book. Like, what do you mean we're gonna start this book with our protagonist? I think listening to a speech from an evil man saying all of these things definitely sets the tone of like, you know, this book is going to be super intense, and also gives you those themes that we are probably going to be exploring throughout the rest of the book. So I just thought that was so strong. It was super impactful to begin with. Definitely hooked me in. So anyways, now we're going to start reading for real. The way I'm already so traumatized by this. So traumatized. There is an event in this book that happens like around page 50, and it's so emotional and it's so sad, and I'm really impressed because that is really hard to do for an author to hook you in enough to be able to like traumatize you by page 50 emotionally. Very tricky. I find a lot of the times when I'm reading a book and something really, really dramatic happens within the first 50 to 100 pages, it doesn't really impact me very much, because obviously you haven't gone through it with your character yet. You have not seen like their bond with the people around them. You have not like you just have not latched onto them yet. But I will say Pierce Brown has hooked me in immediately. I already feel so attached, and yeah, that was a really traumatizing moment. For just a better quick synopsis of what this book is about, we follow Darrow, who is our main character. He is in the Red faction, as I mentioned, and we are actually on Mars. So the Red people are basically like, they've been sent to Mars in advance of other humans. Like, they're just they're pretty big, but they're like a group of people that have been sent in advance to Mars to mine for a certain resource that will help make Mars livable for humans, like large scale. So they've had these values like instilled in them. They just really believe they have to be obedient. They really believe like they're like working for the greater good and helping humanity because Earth is overcrowded. And obviously the Reds are treated very horribly. There are other color factions like grays, golds, there's like pinks and lilacs, like just like a lot of different colors of people. And very early on in this book, Darrow finds himself in this tricky situation where he actually has to disguise himself as a gold and infiltrate their system. So yeah, I already mentioned I'm already hooked. There is something about this world that I can't imagine though, and it's probably because I have not read that much sci-fi. This one is very spacey, obviously, but there are certain things like in the infrastructure of this world that like I literally cannot picture. But I am just kind of seeing, you know, blobs of mood and atmosphere. Something else interesting about the writing is that it is so like computer science coded. It makes sense. This is a sci-fi book. Again, it's not a genre that I dive into normally, but it's just really funny, like the computer science side of me, because if you didn't know, I did study computer science in school. I'm seeing all of these like coding conventions that are used in the writing, specifically camel case, which if you don't know is just a very specific type of writing in terms of using lowercase and uppercase letters to separate words but not have a space between them. A few examples are like sling blade in this world or haul back. There's just like a whole bunch of other ones. It's just really like triggering my old days where, you know, I was coding in school. So far, loving the plot. There was a little moment basically like when our character was going through this big transformation moment that seemed just too convenient for me. And that's also, I don't know if it's just another sci-fi thing that like we're so advanced in technology that certain things that seem impossible are actually very easy in these types of worlds. I was a little iffy on that, but I don't know if that's just like a whole sci-fi genre thing in general. It just seemed too easy, too convenient. But yeah, outside of that, fantastic story so far. I'm definitely hooked in and I can't wait to read more. Is it just me, or is Darrow really frustrating as a main character? I personally think he's a really unlikable protagonist. He is just like, he's so full of himself, and he was kind of like that throughout. Like from the beginning, he had these little hints of just like thinking a lot of himself, like a lot of self-confidence in a weird way, but it didn't really bug me in that first bit of the book. I think just because of everything that was happening at that point, I don't know, it just kind of like was more excusable to me, fell under the radar. But now I just really don't like his character. Like the thoughts in his head, the way he thinks about himself and other people, he is just so selfish and full of it. It's really bugging me. I don't really like Darrow. But what I am enjoying about this is the fun little academic setting that's going on. I honestly didn't know we were going to have an academy setting in this book, but I should have, because I checked the Goodreads synopsis, like the little marketing blurb, and it literally says in there that our main protagonist, Darrow, will go into an institute and like infiltrate. I feel like honestly some of the other characters we are following are a lot more interesting than Darrow himself. I kind of just want to like jump into their minds instead, and I want them to be the main characters. But yeah, overall I am enjoying the environment and I'm hooked onto what's happening in the story, but I just kind of wish our main character was someone else at this point, but we'll keep reading. Also, by the way, I'm on page 222. I was only able to read like 10 to 15 pages yesterday because I was actually really busy. So hopefully I am able to sit down, read a big chunk, and get moving on with the story. I may be a little bit unpopular with this one. I just finished this book, okay? And I'm gonna be so honest, I was bored for a lot of it, which is so shocking to me because the first few sentences hit so hard. Even like the first, I would say, third of this book I was really enjoying, but I didn't see the point of it. First of all, this book does read as more of a dystopian fantasy over a true sci-fi. It honestly just feels like a dystopian fantasy with like a little bit of technology, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I'm definitely more familiar with dystopian fantasy over sci-fi as a genre in general, but going into this knowing it is one of the more popular sci-fi series, I just expected the plot of it to be more sci-fi. It's like we were in a sci-fi setting, but the structure of the plot and the actual things that were happening felt like very much a fantasy. So that just kind of took me by surprise, but like obviously that's okay. And I did like the whole idea of like this academy setting, obviously. So I was excited to see that, but honestly, this academy felt like more just like one big trial versus a typical actual academy setting where like you were in school, you were going to classes, you had that culture of like being a student with like everyone else. We had the competition aspect of it, but that's pretty much it. And this school just felt like a giant Hunger Games, like kind of Hunger Games on a larger scale, but it was like for school, which just felt weird to me. And yeah, I don't know, I just didn't understand the point of it. Everything that was happening just felt so repetitive because we were just in this one big trial. It was like, okay, now we have to conquer this person, now we have to conquer that person, now we have to conquer that person. It was just like repetition of the same thing. What can I say? I was just bored. The plot was boring. And then of course, as I mentioned, I really don't like Darrow, our main protagonist, and that obviously does not help things. It wasn't like all that bad. There were definitely some good moments. I am gonna rate this book a 3.5. Overall, I think the setting that we've built is interesting. I am intrigued to see what happens in the next book. Wasn't my favorite, and I don't know if it's because I was overhyped, because I know so many people love this book and love the series, but I also have been hearing that while not everyone loves the first book, the second and third book in the series are actually like much better. So I'm holding on to that, holding on to that hope, and I will continue the series at some point. But yeah, I'm not fully convinced on this one yet. I'm kind of upset because I thought this was gonna be a 5-star read. It was one of my 5-star predictions, but that's Red Rising, which means we can start our third read, and that is The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. This is our romantasy of the week, and there are a lot of stakes on this one, okay? Because I was hoping I'd be finding 5-star reads this week, okay? Based on the first few lines, and we haven't even broken the 4-star barrier yet. So in terms of this synopsis, it's another one I don't know too much about other than the fact we are set in a world where there's a lot of assassins and like orders and stuff, and our main protagonist is seeking revenge. That's kind of all I know, but I was really surprised at the first few sentences because it seemed very, very cozy, and it scared me to read something that sounded so cozy when you know it's going to be, you know, probably some sort of a high stakes fantasy romance story. And it just made me like worried for everyone and everything that we had just seen and met. So to read those first few sentences together again. Out beyond the glittering city of Fantôme in the wild heart of the plains, the midnight moon hung like a lantern in the sky, bathing the farmhouse that belonged to Seraphine Marchand's mother in a soft silver glow. The light crept in through Seraphine's window and danced along the pages of her book, and for a moment she imagined the curious moon was reading over her shoulder. She turned a page, the words blurring as her eyelids grew heavy. She should be asleep, but she couldn't rest at such a crucial point in the story, even if she had read it 8 times already, even if at 18 years old she was too old for fairy tales. Pippin slumbered at her feet, warming her toes. As a dog of considerable age and only 3 legs to carry him, he had no interest in the inky whispers of imagined adventures. He cared chiefly for naps, river sprats, and on occasion, Farmer Perrin's chickens. So yeah, we're introduced to Seraphine, who for the moment, I'm assuming she is the main protagonist, but she's just reading, you know, she's a reader. She likes staying in and reading, so I can already relate. She's just in bed. There's this like cozy farmhouse. She has a dog who's like only has 3 legs. Oh, poor thing. But let's see how the rest of the book reads. Let's get into The Dagger and the Flame. I'm enjoying this so far. It's kind of like equally parts cute and fun, but also equally parts like it seems a little bit high stakes. I also do think after reading like very intense reads for my past 3 reads, feels very nice, very lovely. It's so easy to read for me, like it's just flowing by and I'm just able to sort of relax with this one, where in my previous few reads, you know, those have not felt relaxing whatsoever. So I also have been trying to look for a romantasy to love again, because obviously there are romantasies that I love. Like last year, I was really loving a lot of the books in this genre, but as I've been discussing both here and on the podcast, I've just been getting bored of the genre as a whole. A lot of it seems very copy-paste, obviously. It's like repetition. And at a glance, the premise of this book seems like it could be just your typical romantasy, but I'm having fun with it. I'm on page 120, so I am just getting into it. So far, I do like the world we're set in. It's not overly complex, and I can tell you a little bit more about it now that I know. We are set in the city of Fantôme, and in the city, we have two different orders. We have the Order of the Cloaks, which is like a group of thieves, and then we have the Order of Daggers, and those are all assassins. These two orders have like this long fueled history with each other, like a rivalry, but they've kind of like settled on this truce, and although there's an actual like ruler of the city, these two orders are basically where the power lies, right? Like they have the power, they control the city pretty much. And a point of contention within these orders is shade, which is the source of magic in this world. So it is like I'm imagining it as like a powdery substance that you can dissolve in liquid. I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but that's just kind of what I'm getting from the text. But it is this like black substance that comes from a plant, but it has to be like brewed and processed in a very particular way. So there are only a few shade manufacturers, like people who know how to process it, and the way it's like distributed and smuggled is very monitored as well. It's very controlled, but if you ingest the shade, like if you eat it or you drink it, it'll give you basically like command over shadows. And so our protagonist, Seraphine, her mother was actually a shade like dealer, but at the beginning of the book, a traumatic event happens. She loses her mother and ends up having to flee to the city of Fantôme and seek sanctuary under the Order of the Cloaks. So she now has to train to be a thief, learn how to hide, and a mark has been put on her by the Order of the Daggers. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think Seraphine definitely seems like a young character. She's very naive. She like tends to blush whenever a boy talks to her and all that. So she seems kind of like very innocent, but she's needing to learn how to, you know, enter this order of thievery very quickly and learn her new way of life. I do like the writing. It's very simple. There are some nice touches of detail in this world, like there are 13 saints that people kind of like choose one or two and use those saints to like help guide their decisions and lives. And the sort of setup with the jade smuggling and the two clans like fighting over each other is kind of reminding me of Jade City in a lot of ways. It's definitely like, I don't think it'll be as nuanced and complex as, you know, the world of the Greenbone saga, obviously, because that is on one hand a whole other genre. It is a high fantasy. This obviously is a romantasy. So I'm expecting the focus to be somewhere else. But yeah, just in terms of the initial setup of like the two clans or the two orders, and then kind of the fight for shade and the mysterious use of it. And also the shade in this world also gives you negative side effects. Like not everyone can handle using the shade, and also prolonged use of the shade will kind of like drive you to madness, or like it'll start affecting your mood and your life and your strength. And that is very reminiscent of the Jade in Jade City. There are definitely a lot of similarities there, but I know this book will have more of a focus probably on the romantic aspect because of the genre it's in. In terms of the love interest so far, we haven't had too many encounters with him yet. We do have alternating POVs in this, but I honestly have no like strong feelings regarding him yet. So we'll continue reading and see, I don't know, how his character develops as well. But that is The Dagger and the Flame so far. Okay, you can probably hear my air conditioning right now, but I don't care. I'm sorry if it's loud. It's a hot day, okay? I need to stay cool. I have been very quickly consuming this book. I have not moved from this chair since the last time we spoke, and we are at page 400. There is like around 100 pages left. I think this is roughly a 500-page book. We'll start with the negatives and then we'll go to the positives. So in terms of the negative, this is one of those like enemies to lovers stories that could have worked, I think it could have worked, honestly. The setup was there for it, but there was so much flirtation happening in the enemy stage, and like, I don't want to see any flirting while our characters are enemies, you know? I want to see that really slow, gradual growth to that point, and I do understand that this is a duology. It's the first book in a duology, so it's not like a long series by any means, so there isn't that much time to have like a slow arc, but I do wish it was slower, so didn't love that. I also didn't really love how Seraphine just did a complete 180 on her personality. Like, when we started the book, as you saw from when we read the first few sentences together, she started off as like a very gentle character, like very naive, honestly, and I know some people might get annoyed at that, but I just wanted to see like more of her softer side come out and like have that play a bigger role as the story unfolds. But our little fairy tale loving girl in that farmhouse at the beginning of the book just completely changed immediately. And like, on one hand, I get some of it to an extent because she had a very traumatic incident happen to her, so I can see why she would kind of like immediately start building up these walls very quickly, but I would have liked to see more of that mental process. Like, even if it happened quickly, I would have liked to see more of it happen on page. It seemed like we kind of had this like training montage style thing, you know, where she was like training in her physicalities, her combat, sneaking around, learning how to be a thief. It felt very much training montage like, and that's where also like more of her personality just like swapped over really quick. I just wish we saw more of that development of her on page. So not loving those aspects of it, but I will say the plot is overall fun. It is one of those romantasies that has actually like something going on in the plot. Like, it's not just about the two of them. There is like, I don't know, a task or a goal that we are trying to achieve that is bigger, that is outside of just their romance with each other. So I am liking the story. I am still enjoying the world we're in. The plot is fun. It's fast paced, a little predictable, but that's okay. And it's sort of like heisty. Like, we kind of have all these like mini heists because obviously we're following thieves. There is also a little bit of like note sending, like note writing to each other, so that's also another like little trope that I always fall for. I do love note writing. Overall, I think this is an enjoyable read for me, but the romance is falling a little bit flat. But let's read up the last 100 pages and we'll see what my overall rating will be for this one. That was a lot of fun at the end, okay? I'm not gonna lie. The ending of this book was like very high action, lots of stuff happening, and full of, I wouldn't say like twists, but just a lot of exciting like turnaround moments, and also really fun setup for the second book. There were definitely some very cheesy moments there in the end, but overall, yeah, I don't know, just so enjoyable to read. Such a quick read. This is 500 pages, but it's one of those books you can just kind of flip through and devour so quickly because, as I said, the writing is very simple. It does feel very much like a YA book. There is like one little spice scene that it's very short and it kind of skims over things. Like, it's not the most like vulgar spice scene, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it is still, I guess, like a little bit more spice than you would normally expect in a YA book. But it was fun. It was fun. And yeah, there was definitely some interesting plot setup for the second book, and I am excited to read on. It's not like my favorite book in the world, but it was just a fun time and it was exactly what I needed, okay? After reading, you know, my past few reads that were a lot more intense. I think if you liked something like Heartless Hunter, I would say this falls very much in that category. And there is like a little bit of like a cat and mouse situation happening here too. So yeah, similar to Heartless Hunter, but I honestly think this world is expanded on a little more than the one in Heartless Hunter because they're both very simple, but I feel like in Heartless Hunter, there was very little of the world and the fantasy aspect, whereas there is a little bit more focus on that in this one. And the romance, I would say, is like pretty on par with the romance in Heartless Hunter. It's very fun, it's addicting, it's cheesy, it's predictable, but who cares when you're having fun, you know? So I think I'm gonna give The Dagger and the Flame a 3.75. I think it was just on the cusp of being a 4-star, but there were just, yeah, a few things about the main character, as I mentioned, and about the romance that I didn't love so much. But that brings us to the end of this reading week. Did we find a 5-star based on the first lines of these 3 books? Unfortunately, none of these ended up being a 5-star, but you know what? That's okay. I still overall had a great time reading these 3 books. And I love that they were all from such different genres. We got into so many different moods this week. That being said, I'm going to leave you guys here for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what you are currently reading. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!